Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our communities. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, here we are. We are finally getting into fall. We're in September of 2023. And I have another special guest on the show today as I'm getting to talk to Paul Killion. Paul is the Regional Human Resources Manager at AutoZone. I recently met Paul, and Paul, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here today. We had coffee. I don't know, it is a month or so ago. You had reached out before then. You joined Dallas HR, and I just thought, here's a leader, someone that's been leading people for a long time, and he is now wanting to continue growing in your leadership. You get involved in Dallas HR. You may have been involved before, but I just thought, you know what, I want to get Paul on the show because I want our listeners to hear your story. And
Awesome.
so I'm so excited about that. We're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk a whole lot today. But before we get started, I always like for my guests to share just a brief highlight of their organization. And for you, it's AutoZone. For those who don't know, I'm sure most everybody probably knows AutoZone, but for those who don't, who is AutoZone and how do you serve your customers?
AutoZone is the automotive leader in the aftermarket business. We have over 7,000 stores, 120,000 employees, and we just put customers first. When the customer comes through the door, what are you working on today? How you doing? Welcome in, and we just try to figure out their needs and help them as much as we possibly can because nobody likes when their car breaks down. So we have to change their hopefully change their perspective of the day by getting them what they need to get back on the road.
I love that. I love put customers first. You know what? I've been to your store. I've had problems before, and someone from the store has come out and helped me, and definitely changed not just my perspective, but changed my day for the
Right.
good. So I appreciate you sharing that. Hey, I we got a chance to visit and over coffee and talk leadership. We just had such a great conversation. But I probably just learned like a tiny bit of you, Paul. I would love to know the Paul Killian story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into HR and leadership?
I grew up as a military kid. First of all, for all those military personnel that's going to listen and watch and see this podcast, thank you very much.
Hmm.
I have lots of respect for the military personnel and what they've done for our country. My father was 27-year Navy vet, and I just have a lot of pride, a lot of appreciation for what the military personnel done, whether they're overseas or not overseas. It makes a big difference. So I grew up not knowing strangers. Every 3 years we moved. We were constantly. You had to get to know the new people. It wasn't easy, but I think it has a lot to do with why today I don't meet a stranger. I meet people, and I think that's a great thing. HR is a long story how I got here. Um, I've been an operator for 33 years before I made the move into HR 6 years ago.
Now,
I went through all.
what is an operator? Is that like a store manager? Is
Yeah, so I started at Chief Auto Parts in 1984 as
Oh
a
wow.
just a part salesperson. I got
Okay.
recruited from 7-Eleven over to Chief Auto Parts, and then from there, I worked in the store for 3 years, got promoted to store manager. Spent 10 years as a store manager in a country store, a college store, and then an inner city store, and just learning how to be a manager. And quite honestly, the first the first set of employees I had, I wish I could go back and apologize to them
Oh,
for not being a very good manager.
yeah.
um, but that happens in life, and we grow and we learn.
Yeah.
And so, after about 10 years of being a store manager, I became a district manager for 25 years. I didn't want to leave Dallas, so I kind of limited my growth because I love living here in Dallas. And then, yeah, and then 6 years ago, I became an HR manager.
That's fantastic. I love that. So, did you go straight from high school into the workforce,
I
or
did.
did you go straight to the military and then into the workforce?
No, I went straight from high school into the workforce.
Okay, into the workforce, and then your dad, of course, served in the Navy.
Yeah, he was,
Mike,
he was,
and I appreciate you sharing that to start. We've had a lot of veterans on the show, and I'm right there with you. I'm so thankful, so thankful. My grandfather served in World War II,
oh, wow.
and he was killed 1945. They were
Mm,
loading ammunition onto the ship, and 300 plus people. It exploded, and 300 plus people died. And as you shared that, I'm sitting there going, that's so awesome. We continue to have people to think about, the people that have paved the way for us. So so thankful, right, for our military. But I love
absolutely.
your story. I actually, when I got hired by my previous boss, he had worked for our moving company in college, and then he got his degree, and he worked there his whole career, 40 something years. And so, you're talking about how you started, in the store as an operator and then just continue to work your way through that. I love your story. I always like to ask the question around around purpose, around finding your life, because Paul, here you are. You've been doing this a long time. You've had success and you've had failure, and of course you talked about wishing you could go back. I'm right there with you. Uh, was there a moment though, Paul, when you like found your lane, when you found your purpose, when you said, hey, you know what? I really love what I do. I found more than just a job. I've really found a career here.
Well, I think, Bruce, I've been finding it for a long time.
Mm,
Um, I've been working on finding my lane, if you will, for several years. I remember back in 2007, where quite honestly, I almost lost my career. I almost lost my job for just performance issues.
mm-hmm,
And it was just a not knowing. I had a management visit my stores, and one of the managers, the senior vice president of operations, actually told my frontline manager that if he had time, he'd go visit all my stores
mm,
because he doesn't think they're being run very well. And so I had to figure out why. That was on me, right? So I
mm,
spent many years as a store manager and then as a district manager thinking it was all about me and I was doing this great thing. And I learned, I guess in 2007, it wasn't about Paul. It wasn't about what I do. It wasn't about anything to do with me, really, but it was about other people. So in 2007, I brought my team together. We made some changes. I started putting them first back in 2007. And when I did, 2008, 2009 were the best years of my career.
mm.
Uh, we set records. We opened new stores. We developed and trained district managers. Currently, we have out of our 9 district managers, not 7 of them came from that district. And I'm very proud of that, and blessed because of it, because I get to work with those folks every day. Um, but finding my lane has been an ongoing process from saying I put my people first and care about my people to actually living it, right?
Mm.
So I guess in 2007, I started seeing the importance of making sure other people were successful. And as I did that, and as I learned that it's all about others, and
Mm.
that's why we're here, is to help each other do this thing we call life. And it's not about the dollars and cents or how much gets rung up or how much goes to the bank. It's how we get there. It's the
Mm.
journey. So I learned that my career is about the people that I'm placed and responsible for. I have 2,000 employees that I'm responsible for currently. And I know that every day when I get up, they're my focus
Mm.
and helping them, being with them, loving on them. That's what we're here for.
Man, that's such a great story. Here you are, 2007. You think, hey, this may be the end here. And little did you realize it was just the beginning.
Yeah.
It was just the beginning as you saw things from a different perspective. I always like to talk about mentors because I think that's a common thread for high performers in the workplace. I think there's people that have helped them in some way. Talk a little bit about, maybe a couple of mentors that have helped you get to where you are today, and what was it about them that made them such a great mentor? I always like to hear these stories.
Man, I got so many. I remember Rex Krisman, my
Mm,
very first mentor.
hmm
He was my very first district manager, and he taught me so much about just being a manager
mm,
and the operational piece, the task piece, not necessarily the people piece, right? But he taught me a lot. And then John Crisafoli,
mm,
my regional manager who promoted me, he used to come over to my store once a month and walk my store with me to teach me about retail.
mm,
Along the way, he was teaching me about people. Then there was my district manager at that same time, Rory Hatcher, my best friend. Um, God rest his soul. He passed away in um, 2007. But he was my best friend, and he once told me, the regional staff doesn't think you're a very good manager.
mm,
And I looked him in the eye and I said, well, then get out of my way and I'll show you how good of a manager I am.
mm.
That
So
next year, the store received every award, first place for the region. I was
wow.
very proud of that. Still hadn't found my lane and still didn't realize people were the most important thing. But it was a great year. Sid Fender is the example of what a businessman, mentor, leader should be. He has showed me so many things. And one of the most important things he ever did, he wasn't the one that promoted me,
Mm,
but when I did get promoted, he sent me a card. And the
mm,
card just said, congratulations, Paul. Take care of your people.
wow.
And from 1997 till 2017, I was learning what that meant.
Huh.
And in 2017 is when I found my lane and started putting my flock first. And I knew what Sid meant then. And everything I do, I look at it and think about how would Sid do this? And man, his influence today, if I get stuck on something, I email him.
It is amazing what encouragement will do for
Yes,
someone.
sir.
I mean, just a note, like it
Yeah,
lifted you up. You probably were, on top of this, top of the building
oh,
after that. You're so high, just
yeah.
incredible.
I still have that note too. I won't let it get away from me.
And that's another thing. People don't throw those notes away. They'll throw away bills. They'll throw away junk mail. But man, when you get a note, that's
Yeah,
like gold. That's like
yeah,
gold. Hey, I want to ask you a question about your friend that had passed, Rory. You mentioned that he challenged you because he mentioned that they didn't think you were a good store manager.
hmm,
And a lot of times we get challenged in our careers, and it just depends on how we want to take that. Sometimes I remember being challenged before, getting kind of upset, like, what do you mean? Versus saying, oh, I accept that challenge, let me take it and show you what I can do.
yeah.
Where did that come from for you? Like, you said, just get out of my way, watch what we do, and then you had success after that. What was it? Because there's some people listening right now on the podcast. There's probably some people that right now that are being challenged and they're trying to figure out which way to go. Was it that you trusted him and you didn't want to let him down? What was it that said, hey, just get out of my way? This is where I'm going. This is the attitude I have. This is the perspective I've have. This is where I'm going.
I guess that kind of attitude started with me when I was very, very young.
Hmm.
When I played football, I was told my junior year, "You're not very good,"
Hmm.
and of course I'm a kid, right? I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, but I went to work, started running, started
Hmm.
lifting weights, started
Hmm.
doing the things I needed to do to become good. and realizing, what is it going to take to be great? So I dug in, and my senior year, I was all county, um, and was very, very successful. One of the strongest guy on the team, the fastest lineman on the team. I remember one day I got to one-on-one pass block or one-on-one run block against every player on the team until somebody beat me, and I didn't get beat.
That's
And
fantastic.
that drive has never left me.
Mm,
That learning, that pride. When you tell me I'm not doing something well, I get mad, like you
mm,
said,
mm.
uh, but I get determined.
Don't you love it when people are truthful with you? I kind of
Yeah,
have
I do.
like I kind of have a love hate with that. I hate it, but I love it because I know it's going to make me better. Man, this is fantastic. I love this. I do want to ask you a real quick question around that
Mhm.
letter because I'm a big note writer, and you mentioned that you still have that letter congratulating you, and you probably have others since. I'm curious, do you write a lot of personal notes? Is that a practice for you?
I started out early as a manager, and it's something I'm bringing back, and it's something I want to get back into. I
Mm,
think it's important. Um, just spending time with you a couple of weeks ago, and the question you just asked me, right? One of the things we want to do is when we're not doing something well, we want to learn from it.
mm,
And what I just now learned was a best practice that really makes a difference in people's lives.
mm.
And that just came to me just now. But so, yes, it's a practice that I have shelved that
Yeah,
I'm going to bring back out
I love
because
that.
I think about Sid and what the difference he made in my career, my life with my family. If he hadn't have set that note,
Yeah,
I might not be sitting here today talking to you
that's
about him.
fantastic. I love
So,
that. I love that. And I'm excited about your journey ahead and some of the notes you're going to be writing. The reason why I asked that was because I mentioned I am a big note writer. I try to I have a practice, but I have so many notes that I haven't written, and that's what really grinds at me. Like I've written so many notes, and I don't think about all of those. I think about the ones I haven't written and the ones
yeah,
all the people that I want to write notes to. And so as we're sitting here having this conversation, I'm sitting there going, man, I got to scale up here. I'm going to have to get this
me
going here
too.
because I mean, as you shared that story about you getting that note and how it really changed the trajectory of your thinking and your perspective and how you're going to approach things. Just think what we can do for others by
Yeah,
just sending them that note. I love that. Hey, let's shift over here to leadership. I love talking leadership, life in the leadership lane, having these
right.
great leaders on the show. I It seems to me that leadership has these different, like, I don't know, definitions, I guess, if it will, or ways people approach leadership. If someone says, Paul, what is leadership to you? How do you typically respond to that?
Leadership is feeding the flock,
Mm,
feeding his sheep. My job as responsibility as a leader is to be able to know when and when not to have those tough conversations, right? To lead people the way we want to be led, to be out in front, not pushing the string, but pulling the string. You know, leadership is empathy and caring about your people. Leadership is a privilege because every day we have the opportunity to make a difference in somebody's life, and how well we lead will determine the trajectory of their life. And so, leadership to me is answering my higher calling.
mm,
And it's something that just came to light to me just a few months ago in reading and what I'm being called to, and that I need to look at. We think, oh, I could go out and get this bigger thing. What's the next big thing? Without seeing what it is we're held responsible for now. When I think about being responsible for 2,000 people
mm,
at AutoZone, I just need to stop right there
mm,
until I've embraced that so much that the people know he really cares about us and he's feeding us and he's teaching us. Like right now, I'm reading your book, Life in the Leadership Lane. but I'm not just reading it. I could read a book, right? Get to the end, great book, put it on the shelf. But what I do and what I'm doing with Life in the Leadership Lane is studying it,
Mm.
because I can sit there and I could take Growth Day and I can apply that to what people in people's lives. And, like last night, I had one page that came out of the book and it was completely highlighted. And I shared it on LinkedIn, but I also shared it with my direct support
Mm.
at the stores and said, look, Domingo, our boss, has been telling us for weeks to slow down
Mm.
and listen and be
Mm.
present.
Mm.
And there was one line in that book that says, if you're on your cell phone, you can't be present.
Mm.
You can't make eye contact. And so leadership is about looking at yourself and making sure that the reflection to your people, the shadow you're casting, what you're feeding them is serving a purpose for them. And when you lead from that perspective, I think you make a difference.
I love that. You just shared that about being on your cell phone. And I remember my wife last night asking me a question. we're in the living room and I'm like, yeah, that's it. And she said, Bruce, get off your cell phone. Did you hear me? And I looked up and I wasn't present. And so when
Yeah.
you talk about that, I think it's important not just to be present in the workplace. We got to be present everywhere we are,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Whether you're walking through a crowd, if you're just standing in a line, you see a need, somebody dropped something. Yeah.
That's
There's
fantastic.
so much reason to be present.
I love that. This is so good.
Yeah. We miss a lot by not being present. That's
I'm with you. As a matter of fact, there's sometimes whenever I go work out at the gym, a lot of times I've got my earbuds in and I'm listening to podcasts or music or something. But sometimes I'll put my phone and everything, just put it up and just go work out in, you know, just in that silence and watch people as I'm working out. It's a totally different feeling, because you see different people and you can like see their stories and it's just, oh man, this is so good. Hey, when we were talking, you were talking about the importance of continuous learning. And this is the thing that really, and thank you for referencing the book. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're enjoying that. The one thing that I did include was the top 10 things I've learned from high performers in the workplace. And one of those things is just a common thread all the way across, and they're all continuous learners. They never stop learning. And when you and I were talking about continuous learning. And I was sitting there going, here's a guy that has been, doing great things his whole career. You would think that you get to a point where you're like, hey, I've got it all down now, but you continue to learn. From you. Like, what are you focused on right now? I mean, you're mid-career, late career. I always tell my wife I'm mid-career, and she said, just keep telling yourself that, Bruce. Okay, so I am late career. But what are you learning right now? And you mentioned that you were reading a book and you sent that out to your team. What other things are you doing to help develop not just yourself but people in the organization?
So let me start by just backing up a little bit, and let me tell you why I'm where I'm at when it comes to learning.
Okay.
Nancy Stevens, senior vice president of HR at the time, I was in an interview and she asked me, "So what was the last book you read, Paul?"
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, "Book, read? Are you kidding me? We do that still? I haven't done that. I haven't had to do that since I was in high school." That's what I thought to myself. But really, what I thought to myself was, "Wow, it's pretty sad that I can't say, other than the Bible, any of the book I really read to feed myself." So I started thinking about it, and occasionally I picked up a book. Then I had another HR manager in the last 6 years, Ted Pitchler, used to challenge me on spelling and grammar, and
Hmm.
he was irritating to the point where I just wanted to strangle him. But he sent me books on spelling and grammar, and so I read them. And now I read a book a month because there's knowledge to be had from other people. And when I improve my leadership skills through knowledge, I can be a better leader for the people. And so You know, I've joined Dallas HR like we spoke about earlier, and I am going to go through the SHRM training there for SHRM certification to get SHRM certified this year. And so I know Dallas SHRM is going to be able to help me in that journey. And plus,
Yeah.
my mind is set now to learn.
Mm.
When I read a book, I'm not reading a book; I'm learning from the book. In the past experiences, like your past experiences that you've shared, and other books that I've read, like The Servant. I got books all around me now, and it's like
Mhm.
somebody walk into my office that knew me from the '90s, they'd be like, "I'm in the wrong office."
That is fantastic. I love that. I love all that. Hey, I want to shift a little bit here. When I met you, this is really what caught my attention, Paul. And you have great presence, you have great energy. I love your stories, all that. But this is what caught my attention. We're sitting there and we're visiting, and you're getting ready to go and do your daily things for work, but you had all these pins on
Oh
you.
yeah,
And I start asking you, well, what's that pin for? Well, this is for recognition. This is what we do for, and you just like, you're like an ambassador. And I want to ask you, like, talk a little bit about these pins that you had on and pins that you give out to your employees, because this is like total, like when you talk about engagement, man, I'm like, this is engagement right here, recognition. Talk a little bit about these pins that you were wearing and what you do for your team members.
this is part of our culture, and anybody that is in leadership should know their culture matters, right?
Mm.
At AutoZone, we have pledge and values that we live. We don't just talk about them; they're not just on a wall on a piece of paper. We actually live them. And these pins, first of all, I take a lot of pride in them. I'm very proud of the accomplishments. One of them is for District Manager of the Year, top 5% of all the DMs throughout the nation. One of them is the top HR Manager of the Year, same thing, top 5%. I got an extra miler, which is a goal.
That's got my attention. What's an extra miler?
So an extra miler is going above and beyond the
Ooh.
call of duty to take care of a customer or to take care of a teammate or
Mm.
come up with a great idea that changes the course of the company. We have one called the Ray of Hope. So the Ray of Hope Award is for somebody that is in their community making a difference, or somebody has seen somebody in an accident and they dove into the fire to get the person out. That's our Ray of Hope. And so we have a lot of these awards, safety awards for being safe. But I think the one that most people are most proud of,
Mm-hmm.
I know I am, and it's your service award. Every
Mm.
year we give a anniversary pin out. So from year one, and like in my case, to year 39, you get a pin
You
every
have
year.
so you have 30, 38, 39 pins for your service.
Yes. So
That's like, okay,
I,
so do you get and okay, he's holding his pin up right now. This is fantastic. I love that. So for you watching or listening right now, you need to get onto the YouTube video and you can see Paul's pin here. So for me, I like get an email. Hey, congratulations on another year of being work. And that's nice. But you like that's next level.
it's important because it means the company is recognizing my service to what we do here
Mm.
personally, not just dollars and cents and
Mm-hmm.
P&Ls and all that stuff. But they personally recognize me, and I get a letter signed by the regional manager and the divisional manager,
Yeah.
divisional vice president, excuse
Yeah.
me. I get a letter. Um, and Friday, I got to spend all day last Friday going around and delivering pins. And what
Wow.
I do is I deliver all the milestones 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay.
And the district managers, they deliver the ones in between.
Okay.
So I get to hand deliver those and take pictures and love on the AutoZoners
Oh.
and just put my arm around them and thank them for what they do and what they've done. And my boss has something. He always tells them, "Thank you for making a difference for my family."
Mm.
And he shares that with them because it makes a difference. What they do matters. And Go
what you
ahead.
said though, you said thank you for making a difference for my family. You didn't say for, the team or the workplace or because they know they do, but he said for my family. That's that's pretty special.
Yeah, it is. And matter of fact, I cut him off Friday and forgot about his speech he does. And after he read the letter, he's like, "Just a minute, Junior, slow down,"
That's
because it's
fantastic.
important to him, and
Yeah.
it's important to me as well. That we really thank these people because we
Mm,
gave one award away Friday that was 30 years.
mm,
And I remember when that guy came to work for us, and
wow.
he and I worked together 15 years. He was part of my district, and the guy is just a wonderful individual. And I was blessed to be able to honor him. And it was great.
That's fantastic. I love how you like when you're sharing this story, I could feel how much you value people and how your leadership values people. And I think that's what it's all about. This is the story you've been sharing today about how, you've gone from helping yourself to helping others. I'm writing right now my next book. I'm about finished with it. I'm going to publish in 2024. But
All right.
it's really around changing lanes, and it's what you've done. It's really moving your career from success to significance, because when you're going for success, you're really helping yourself climb the rung of the ladder. But when you get to significance, that's a whole different game. That's what you're doing now. Like that's significant. People are going to remember that because you are putting people first and you're doing all these things for people, and they're
Mm.
going to be thinking about you and how you changed the trajectory, and people on your team have changed the trajectory of their leadership. It's got to make you feel pretty good.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I love our team and I love our people. And man, I get a blessing to go to work every day.
Hey, I want to ask you a last question before we move uh, into another area, and that is for people listening right now. They're in their early career, they might be in their mid career, they might be in their late career, like us. Um, what is I don't know, maybe a couple of practices? You've talked about several different things, but what's a couple of practices that you would share, a couple of tips that you would share with somebody listening right now saying, hey, if you do these couple of things, you're going to move your career forward in some fashion. What would a couple of tips be?
The first one's easy. Live the culture of your company.
Mm,
Know their mission and live it. Don't just read it. Don't recite it, but live it. Totally buy in. One comment in your book was be all in.
mm-hmm.
And if you're not all in and you're looking at it as I'm just trying to make this paycheck, you're going to struggle. But once you go all in,
Mm,
you don't struggle.
yeah,
You find ways to win.
I love
You
that.
find ways to achieve success. So that's the first thing. And if your company doesn't have a culture, be the beginning.
Mm,
I
yeah,
know at AutoZone, there's nothing more important than our culture. Our culture matters. It changes lives.
yeah, it's fantastic. I love that. Hey, I always like to ask questions around advice. You've given a lot of advice today. But those listening right now, they're looking for that one nugget for advice that you might share with them. What would that be?
Really care about your people. Don't just talk about it. Sell out for your folks. Sell out for your employees, your associates. Really love on them.
Mm.
Meet them where they're at and be present.
And let me ask you this question just as a follow up to that. There's sometimes that it's hard to meet people where they're at. Maybe I don't know, they don't see things from your viewpoint. They're not quite living out the mission, or they just I don't know, maybe they just have a story that you don't know about. Like how do you get how do you meet people where they're at, especially when it comes to a difference of opinions, because I think we all know that like every time you walk slowly through the crowd, everybody's not going to be walking with you. There's going to be some people that have just like they're waiting, or maybe they're walking a different way. how do you approach people that aren't looking things from your lens?
So one of my mentors, my current boss, Domingo Medellin, when he came to this region 5 years ago, he taught me one of the most important things I've ever learned,
Mm.
and that's be focused, be conscious of the shadow you are casting. People are watching. So even though I might have a difference of opinion, if I'm trying to help somebody, my opinion doesn't matter. I'm trying to help them, right? So I got to shelve that and put that away, and I'll worry about my opinion later. But how I meet them is by making sure that what I'm doing is casting a positive shadow for them, and it'll affect them positively if I'm doing the right thing, and they may change their opinion. They may come to success. Case in point, the other day I walked into a store and an employee looked terrible. He had holy jeans on. He had a terrible looking shirt on. He didn't have his name tag on. And I could have just, gone leadership on him, gone operator on him. And I
Hmm.
thought, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. I took him in the back room and I said, tell me your story.
Mm.
I want to know what's going on with you. By the end of the conversation, I found out that him and his mom were having some financial struggles,
Mm.
and he couldn't afford to get the right kind of shoes. And so myself and the district manager got together and we got him fully uniformed. And then I taught him about our AutoZone Assistance Fund, how we help our employees that are in need. So I shared that information with him, and I found out he didn't want to do that because he has a lot of pride. So I went back to him and I said, look, first of all, this isn't a pride thing. This is a life thing. We're here together. And second of all, you don't have to pay it back. It's a gift from AutoZone, from me, as I've taken out of my paycheck every 2 weeks and I put into that fund. Just consider it a gift from me. You don't have to get stuck behind that pride, and let us help you.
That's fantastic. I love that because you approach it from a totally different viewpoint. It's like, hey, you know what? I want to learn what's going on over here before you even judge. And I think at the end of the day, that's when you really find yourself in the lane of valuing people. That's how you approach it, right? You approach it from, hey, I may not know the whole story here. I had one of my team leaders always tell me there's always two sides to even the world's thinnest pancake. I've never forgotten that because, like, you're right. There's another side of the story. We got to learn that story and then approach how we're going to approach that. I have loved every bit of this. It's been so much fun. Hey, before I shift over to it's time to accelerate, I want to ask one last question, and that's around failure because you talked earlier in your career. Hey, I've had failure in my career, and I know there's some people listening that they may be going through this or gone through this. What do you have to say about failure? Because I know that I've gone through failure, and like I mentioned before, it's kind of that love hate, right? I just hated it at the time, and I'm so glad I went through it because I'm better today. How did you get through failure moments in your career, and how has that helped you?
I've had many failures in my career,
Mm.
um, bad choices, bad decisions, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I like those times because
Hmm.
I don't.
Right.
None of us do. And if you're out there and you're in that moment of failure, you're struggling, just pick something to learn from it.
Mm.
Every one of our failures is not really a failure. It's just a direction we went that was wrong or different than the success direction, and we can learn from that,
Mm.
and we can gain experience from that. Even those last 2 3 years, I've made mistakes in the HR world, but I learned from it.
Hmm.
You know, and I took away from it what I can do better.
Mm.
And um, and I think that's it. When you fail at something, don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a lesson or a learning experience.
Yeah.
That's like my boss tells me all the time. When you mess up, I don't ever have to worry about you doing it twice.
I got to interview Coach Bob Stoops on my podcast, and he talked about don't ever let them get you twice. It's okay
That's
to let
right.
them get you once. Just don't let them get you twice. And so,
That's
hey,
right.
this has been so good. I appreciate you, Paul, so much. Hey, I want to shift over to some, I call it's time to accelerate some fun facts. Would you rather listen to a book or listen to like or an audible book or a podcast or read a
After
book?
today, I'm going to get more interested in podcasts because this is the first experience I've ever had with one, listening or being part of one. I like listening to books. I really like reading them more though because I get to highlight them and really
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
In your book that I'm reading now, Life in the Leadership Lane, it's really eye opening to some best practices and some
Mm.
things I'm taking away from it is amazing. It's a really good book. Dale Carnegie's book, How
Oh,
to Win
yeah.
Friends and Influence People. I remember going to Dale Carnegie. I went there 12 weeks and then I wound up coaching for 36 weeks.
Oh,
And yeah, that was a great time in my life. So,
that's fantastic. I love that. I love all of that. I always talk about great leaders or grateful leaders. What are you grateful for, Paul?
I'm grateful for God, my wife, my family, and all the people I get to work with every day.
Mm,
Yeah,
love
I'm
that.
grateful for you too, Bruce. And just how this is our relationship has changed just in a month, right? From not knowing each other till we had coffee, and now here we are. I mean, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this time.
Well, and I'm grateful for you coming on the show today, Paul. I appreciate that so much. You never know where your path is going to take you if you act. I always talk about acting, ACT, ACT, the acronym, action changes things, right? You just got to take
That's right.
action and reach out and talk to people. Hey, I always like to ask this question around what energizes you? What energizes you, Paul?
People. I love being around people.
Mm,
My wife will tell you. And it's funny because I don't like being in a crowd.
mm. Oh,
I don't like thousands and thousands of people around me. It makes me anxious. But
mm.
if I'm in a crowd of people and I'm interacting, I love
Hmm.
it.
Hey, this is my final question, Paul, and probably one of my favorite questions. Paul, 10 years older, is around the corner. He's knocking at your door, and you're going to answer that door. What's he going to tell you?
You finish strong, stay
Mm,
faithful, and that's what my goal is to be better every day, help
mm,
people be better every day, and to finish strong.
mm.
And I think that's what he's going to tell me because I got the support of my wife, support of my family, support of my friends, support of new friends. I got to be finishing strong.
That's a wise 10 years older Paul Killion. Hey, I appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom. There's some things you shared today. I'm sure the listeners are like they have their journals, they've written notes in their journals. If someone heard something and they want to connect with you, or learn more from you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Well, my email is paul.killion@autozone.com.
Fantastic. And then are you on LinkedIn as well?
I am on LinkedIn. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Perfect. And I'll put the LinkedIn link in the show notes. And if you connect with Paul on LinkedIn, be sure and put a note in there. Hey, I heard you on Life in the Leadership Lane, and he'll immediately know what that's from. And
Yeah.
man, this has been so good. I knew it would be energizing. So much fun learning your story, and I can't wait to share it with others, Paul.
Well, thank you, Bruce. And man, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. And this has been fun. So
Yeah, that's been great. I can't wait to share it, man. Thanks again for coming on the show. I'll talk to you later, Paul.